Well, thanks very much indeed for investing in the PlaneSWING golf training system. I truly believe that you've bought the best golf swing trainer on the market, and I really want to take you through the whole assembly process. It's really quite simple, but there are a few little bits that I want to explain in a little bit more detail. First of all, what you see here is the box as it arrives. Hopefully UPS take good care of it. And what you'll see is that I'm 6 foot. This is 65 inches by 21 by 8 inches. It's 79 pounds in weight, which is roughly 36 kilos. So we've unstrapped the box. And you can see here, we've got all of the items inside of the box. Now it's important to note that if you've ordered the par package, you'll be getting one long standard power slider. If you've ordered the birdie package, it will include a short power slider. And if you've ordered the eagle package, it's going to include a long, a short and a long light power slider, which is ideal for ladies and juniors. Now, what I want you to do is basically to take all of the components out and lay them out as they're going to be assembled. So I want you to take a good look at this next picture. So from this shot here, you'll see that we've laid out the PlaneSWING exactly how it's going to be assembled. And why this stage is so important is it enables you to check off the parts and make sure that you've got everything. But what I would say is don't be alarmed by the assembly manual, because when you look at that you think, oh my goodness, I'm missing so many parts. But you're not actually. Many of these parts are factory fitted. There are parts here that are factory fitted that you can't see that are actually listed on the parts list. So don't be too concerned about that. Really all you've got is the 4 elements of the upper circle, the 4 parts of the ground tube, and then you've got the calibrated strut, and you've got the mat. And that really is just about it. And then you've got the nuts and bolts that obviously help you put all those components together. And we'll show you a stage-by-stage process as to how that assembly takes place. But I do feel that this is so important that you get all of these pieces out in front of you, you understand how it's going to be put together, and that's just going to really short circuit the whole assembly process, and it's going to make sure that you're confident for the next, what will be probably around about 45 minutes. And as you know, it's a once only job, so it's worth doing properly. So one of the things that I like to do to make sure that I've got all the parts and nothing goes missing is just to lay them out. I actually lay them out on the back of the drill numbers sheet, but everything's clear, you can see here. So we've got the hex bolts, and these go in at the halfway point. We've got the Allen key bolts, which will be used to join the sections of the ground tube. You can see here we've got the nuts there, and then what we've also got here is plastic washers and the metal washers, and then we've got the smaller hex bolts and the nuts here, and also we've got Allen key, which is used to tighten these 2 bolts here. And we have a couple of basic tools here. These are wrenches, which are perfectly adequate, but you may want to use your own tools. So let me just talk you through briefly the rest of these components. We've got the plane checker, which has a thread here, which will go into the butt of the power slider. We've got the bungee cord, which is for setting the angle of the PlaneSWING to your ideal swing plane. We've got the studs that go to attach the mat. Of course, we have the owner's manual for you. We've got the D-rings, which are used for the calibrated strut. So the calibrated strut is for altering the angle of the upper circle, and these are used for that. And then we have the stays, which fit on the side of the upper circle, and they're there for safety purposes. Very important that you attach these, and we'll show you that later. And then what we also have are the hooks, and what these do when the PlaneSWING is folded, these link the ground tube together with the upper tube. So the first thing we want to do is assemble the upper circle. So we've got the connector tube here, and it's a tight fit, okay, but for good reason. So we want to go through there, and you can see there now that's nice and tight. And I have a little bit of a cheat actually. I use the Allen key, which you're going to use later, just to line up the holes and make sure that everything's in line. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add this section. See again, use the Allen key again, and there we are, nicely connected. So once you've done that, we now add the screws. Put the locking nut on here, and then using and once you've done that, just check that the joint is smooth, which it is, and then repeat the process at the upper section of the ground tube. So here I am connecting the upper half circle, and this is where the calibrated strut is going to connect. So the D-ring will be going through these holes here, and we'll see that a little later on. So using the hex bolts, we're now going to connect the hinges which are at the halfway point. And to be honest, this is probably the only point in the assembly where you need two people, and it will require somebody to lift this section at the back just so that it lifts up and manages to fit into the piece. So you can see here now, okay, so having got these two pieces lined up, simply slide through the hex bolt. You're now fitting the locking nut, but what I would urge you to do is to do this just beyond finger tight, because remember, these hinges are going to have to move as and when you fold the unit. So you want to be able to do that, and you're not going to be able to do that if you do these too tight. Okay, so think maybe just a little bit more than finger tight. So these two pieces here, I call them the black elbows, obviously, because of their shape. They also house the wheels. So this is for moving the plane swing from place to place. Fantastic addition. And what we're going to do is we're going to slide this through here, and you want to make sure it goes right the way to the bottom. And it's very important, as you can see here, I've got this pad, and you want the pad facing the ground. Okay, so there's a left and a right version, and you want to make sure that the pad is facing the ground because that's going to protect your floor. So congratulations, you have assembled the upper circle and you've added the black elbows, so we're ready to fit the ground tube. Now, a little trick you might want to do, just to give yourself a little bit more room, is you can now fold the plane swing in half there, you see, and then simply make sure you're on a nice surface, you're not going to scratch the plane swing. Come back here, and now we can add the ground tube sections. Now we're going to add the ground tube section, and you can either add these horizontally or you can add them vertically. Personally, I prefer to install vertically. You can see here, just fits over. And what I've got here is I've got the Allen bolts, which is important, and I've also got the metal washers. So very simply fit through there, washer on the other side, using the metal washers either side. And then what you have here is the Allen key. Allen key goes in there. Hold this in place with this wrench, or spanner as we say in the UK, and then simply tighten as far as it can go. and then repeat the process on the other side. So you can see now we've got these two sections connected to the black elbows, and this is the section that it is a little bit fiddly, if I'm honest. So you've got three smaller hex bolts and obviously the little hex nuts here, and we're going to fit these in here. Now bear in mind there are three holes for these three nuts, right? But the pieces at the end are for the D-ring, okay? The D-ring, because this is where the calibrated strut is going to attach. So if I just show you here when we start. So that's the first one tightened, and all you're going to do now is repeat the process here and here, with this being for the D-ring for the calibrated strut. That's important. Okay, so now we're going to fit the base hooks. These are really important because it's the base hooks that attach the ground tube to the upper circle when the upper circle's folded, so that you can simply roll it out of the garage when you're going to use it in your yard, or if you're going to roll it away for storage. So you simply slot it in like so. Bear in mind there's a left and a right, that's very important. And then what we're going to do is add one of the plastic washers, and then the hex bolt, and then it's exactly the same at the other side. Probably the quickest part of the whole assembly process, if I'm honest. But they're really useful, and it's a very important piece of kit. You only want to finger tighten it because you need it to be able to move in order to attach to the upper circle. So the next part of the assembly process is attaching the mat. Now, it's optional whether or not you want to attach the mat, for the simple reason that a lot of coaches and I would say elite players, what they tend to do is to lay the ground tube over the mat, because they might want to exaggerate a movement and move the upper circle. And if you're going to move the upper circle while standing inside, you can't do that if the mat's attached. Okay, so you actually get that little bit of flexibility. So personally, I don't attach the mat, because when I'm coaching people a lot of the time, I am looking to move the upper circle whilst they're standing inside of PlaneSWING. But if you are going to attach the mat, then what you need to remember is that as you're attaching with the studs, that you go left, right, left, right, left, right, okay? Do not attach all one side first, because it is a devil of a job to get the mat to actually stretch from one side to the other, okay? So it's a pretty simple process. You've got the studs here, stud through the hole, and it pushes into that section, and simply bring it across. Same again, and you can see even there it's quite a tight fit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach the calibrated strut to the ground tube. Now there are two sections of the calibrated strut. There is the outer section and there's the inner section. The inner section has a sticker here showing the various numbers, so you'll set it to your ideal angle. And what we're going to do is we're going to slide it in here, taking good care not to scratch the sticker. So whenever you're changing the setting, it's always important to do it nice and gradually. So I'm going to put in the D-ring right now, and I'm putting it in at, no, let's go down to -4. Okay, I'll explain why in a second. So there we go, we've shortened the calibrated strut. Now what I'm going to do is attach it to the ground tube, and I'm doing it so that the sticker is facing in. And why that's important is because when you're using PlaneSWING, what you want to be able to do is just turn around and check the setting, okay, without having to go around the back. Especially important if you are coaching. Okay. So there we have it. We're now attached, and of course the third D-ring will attach to the upper circle. So we've connected the strut, and now the strut needs to connect to the upper circle. Now this is a job you might want to have for 2 people. This is how I do it. I simply let the ground tube fall. I lift up here the upper tube, pull it up. You'll see there it automatically connects, and then I just, using the 3rd D-ring, place it through there, and we're now attached, and we can now move the circle up and down. So we're nearly at the end of the process, and we now move on to the safety stays. Very, very important. And these fit on either side. There is a left and a right. So it's important that when it goes on, that you can see here that the section is fitting on and not under this piece here. So let's put plastic washer on there. Then we put the safety stay on. Place the plastic washer. Add the nut on there, and then tighten it pretty much as far as it can go, and then just repeat the process on the other side. So what we're doing now is, you'll see that you've got a sheet of numbers. So these are drill numbers, and they really help you as you're building the swing. So we want to make sure that they're placed in a clock formation, and that they're facing slightly in towards you when you're inside a plane swing. That way you can see the numbers, so it's nice and easy for you to build the swing. But importantly, the power slider isn't going over the bulk of the numbers, so they might just be going over the edge. So you can see here 12, 11. Now I'm looking at adding number 10 here. So you can see here where I place number 10 inside, so that it's facing inside to you, and the power slider's not going to damage it. And then place the rest of the numbers in a clock formation, nice and evenly spaced, and what that means, it's going to be a lot easier for you then when you're building the swing to be able to see the numbers and work on that sequencing of the body and the arms. So congratulations, you have assembled your PlaneSWING golf training system, and trust me, it's going to be the best investment you've ever made in your golf. Now what we have here, of course, is the power slider. Very important, because there's no point in doing this if you don't use the power slider. So what we have here is the plane checker, and the plane checker is a guide throughout the swing to see whether or not you are on plane at 10 o'clock through to 2 o'clock, and it's also very important for checking your impact position. So watch all the instructional videos on that. Very simply, it screws into the butt of the power slider, and it's interchangeable with all the other power sliders. And once you've done that, you're pretty much ready to go. You will have seen the bungee cord that is in the pack, and that is for going from one side to the other when you initially set up your ideal angle. Okay, but do watch the instructional videos, and that will explain exactly how you do that. So what you will notice on your plane swing is 2 little hooks here, one this side and one the other. And these are not for the bungee cord for measuring your plane angle. These are for fitness elements that we'll be introducing very shortly. And if you look out planeswing.com and planeswing.co.uk, you'll soon see those available. And the whole idea is that we're adding another fitness element to PlaneSWING in addition to the power slider, so that you're going to build additional rotation and strength in those golfing muscles. So we know the PlaneSWING folds in half. You've seen that when we were actually assembling it. And of course we've got the wheels. So how do they come into play? Very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to drop the calibrated strut down. I like to drop it down to -4. Undo the top, and you can see now the PlaneSWING is resting on my shoulder. Put the D-ring back in, keep hold of this, drop that down, lift up from the back, and this is where the hooks come into play. So you can see there the hooks are now linked onto the bottom of the PlaneSWING. And then all I do is I undo one safety stay, Move across, undo the second safety stay, drop the upper circle down, and away we go.